So a question already popped up on Twitter. The question was, how does one get into editing? Like, how does that? I mean, that's directed towards you, Dr. Wilson. How did you find yourself in realizing, oh, editing is actually something I like?
Well, first I think you have to do it. I mean, I kind of stumbled into editing by being an editor. Again, I was at a small daily newspaper in Fort Dodge, Iowa, where virtually every member of the staff got a chance to be an editor on like Friday nights or Sunday afternoons or strange times when the other people might not be around. So, I mean, you have to be able to do it, first of all, and prove that you can do it, that you can meet deadlines, that you can write headlines that make sense, you can do all the things that go into being an editor at a newspaper. You also have to be good with words. I think that's true for most communication jobs, but particularly if you're going to be an editor, you have to be able to, handle the spelling, the grammar, the punctuation, the wording. You have to be able to, if there's, some important information missing, you need to know, be able to catch that kind of thing. So you also kind of have to be a jack of all trades. You have to know a lot about a lot of things. Like I was a copy editor at the St. Paul Pioneer Press, and I would edit stories about all kinds of topics. One day it might be about a war in Afghanistan, and the next day it might be something from a basketball game. So you kind of have to learn a lot, have good language skills. Although these days I would argue that everybody needs to be a good editor. In fact, a lot of editors are getting cut out, or a lot of copy editors a lot of news organizations have gone to having regional copy editors that edit for a lot of newspapers in their chain or their group, and a lot of more emphasis is being placed on individuals being able to edit their own copy. So,
just that at a mid-sized or larger newspaper, there's two different kinds of editors, right? There's my editor, who's my boss, or you go off the organizational chart at a newspaper, and then there are copy editors who tend to be sort of on par with reporters and tend to work more on the language itself, making sure there are no mistakes in the paper, that sort of thing.
That's important to realize too, is that the term editor, you got to keep in mind which one you're talking
about.
about.
That's a good clarification.
Any questions before I move on here? I've got a couple more popping up on Twitter, but in case you want to raise your hand, go on out there. That'd be excellent too.
I want to respond to one that's up there, but it just disappeared.
Which one?
Right at the bottom. Yeah, Sam Reader. There. There. Who knew that someone from close to where I live could make it so far in his journalism career? It gives me hope and inspiration. And I actually wanted to emphasize that. I'm from a small town in Iowa. My hometown is 10,000 people, and actually Carroll is 8,000 people. So I'm from a small town in Iowa, and when I was on my Fulbright year in Oman, and by the way, we visited Cairo, I've seen Mount Everest, I visited Kathmandu, we went to Istanbul, I've been to Bulgaria, I went to Qatar and saw the headquarters of Al Jazeera. I've been to Afghanistan, United Arab Emirates, Dubai, and all those things. And there were times when I would be taking a photograph or just looking around thinking, how does a small town Iowa boy get to do this? But the fact is that you can. Don't ever sell yourself short. I thought those were photographs that only photographers from National Geographic got to see. The fact is, those National Geographic photographers also come from small towns. And if you're good, if you're dedicated to what you do, the whole spectrum of opportunity is open to you. And I took a chance in applying for a Fulbright, but it's not that big a chance. I have students sometimes come to me and say, should I apply for this scholarship? And my answer is, I can tell you if you don't, you won't get it. But if you do, you might not get it. But if they say no, they don't come and shoot your dog. They just say no, and you move on. There are no consequences for trying and not quite reaching it. There are no consequences. And in fact, my first Fulbright, I got turned down. and I almost didn't reapply, and I would have missed a whole year of fascinating experiences. So yeah, if you're from a small town, from anywhere, Nebraska, Iowa, anywhere in our area, the whole spectrum of opportunity is open to you.
And the good thing about it too is that journalism is ready-made in some way for societal misfits, right? You don't have to be the coolest guy in your high school. In fact, if you're the coolest guy in high school, you're probably not going to be in journalism. I mean, it's just such one of the things that I really love about it is the idea that it turns that on its head. And it becomes about how hard you want to work, sort of some skills that you know, some people are just good as writers, but you can teach yourself how to do that. It's not like it's a impossibility like, you know, it would be for me to be a nuclear scientist. So it's out there. It's not, so much today is about how, you know, journalism is in trouble, you know, the media is in trouble, and there's certainly a lot to talk about there, and we should talk about that, but the idea that it's impossible, or that, you know, somehow for you guys it can't happen, it's not true. It really can't.
I'm going to merge a couple of questions that have popped up on Twitter here quick. Ashley asked, what inspired you to become a journalist or broadcaster? And Mitchell asked, how did you know you wanted to go into journalism? So give us the inspiration as well as how'd you know? Why choose this?
I was on my high school newspaper staff. I got a job at the radio station. I really wasn't quite sure what I was going to do when I got to college. I knew I was going to Iowa State. I didn't quite know what for. And a guidance counselor, as with Sherry, suggested journalism. True story, at Iowa State, you start your actual reporting courses in your sophomore year, Journalism 201, which at that time met twice a week from 8 a.m. to noon or 1 p.m. to 5. It was twice a week, a 4-hour class. And I remember distinctly, and I had already had the intro course, much like this one. And I remember distinctly as a first quarter, at that time, sophomore, the first day the teacher had given a short lecture on how to write leads and said, okay, we had typewriters, this was well before computers, put the paper in the typewriter and you know, had given us a list of facts, and we were supposed to start practicing leads. And I started writing out my first lead. And honest to God, I thought, this is what I'm supposed to do. I am supposed to be a journalist. It filled something in my heart, it filled something in my soul. How did I know? What was my inspiration? I just knew from that moment that I started writing a lead that I was supposed to do this in one form or another. I chose broadcasting. I could easily have chosen newspapers. And I chose radio. I didn't even choose television. I chose radio because it's what I love, and it's still what I love. But that's how it happened for me. A guidance counselor suggested it. I sat down at the typewriter and said, yes, this is what it is.
How about the rest of you? What made you realize, oh yeah, I can do this?
It's more of like, you know, just being in it and experiencing it with other students and other professors, and just knowing that, like, I actually love to do this. You know, every time I go to work every day, it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to go to work. It's, oh my gosh, I get to, like, direct newscasts all day long. You know, that's really cool. You know, not a lot of people can say that they're doing what they love and just doing what they went to school for. I think that's a big deal. I have a lot of friends who aren't doing what they wanted to do initially, or they're still trying. And, you know, I am lucky. I'm very fortunate to the way that things happened, and I don't take it for granted.
Other thoughts?
I wrote a story for my high school newspaper. I was real into sports at Kid Thorne. And I wrote a kind of a personal essay thing about how frustrating golf was. The headline was, it was really corny. It was like, it was during the Tiger Woods, I am Tiger Woods ad campaign. It was like, I'm Tiger Woods some of the time. It was dumb, but it was the first time when I realized that I could take something from my life or from other people's lives, repackage it into written form, give it to other people, and they would find it interesting. That was a real amazing thing to watch. And then, so then I was a sports writer, and I was a sports writer in college. I mean, there are so many people into high school football, into Nebraska football, whatever, you know, just sort of sports nerds who go to college newspapers and say, I want to cover football. That's exactly what I did. It wasn't even so much about journalism for me, it was more about sports. And the second story is that actually, that's what I was doing. I had sports internships. I mean, it seemed like it was going to work. And on September 11, 2001, I had a story assignment that was to write about, I can't remember who, I think it was DeJuan Gross. He was in the secondary, Nebraska's secondary. I was going to write a story about how he'd been struggling and then he started playing better, whatever, stories that sports writers crank out every week. And I did that. So on September 12, 2001, you can Google it probably. There's a byline story by Matthew Hansen about DeJuan Gross and his struggles in the secondary for University of Nebraska. And that day, September 11, 2001, I decided sports was not for me. Sports is fun, but it's not important ultimately. And that is the day that I switched from sports to